Energy Master. Introduction. Have you ever felt energy move through your hands during an emotional moment? Have you walked into a room and immediately known something significant had happened there, even though it looked perfectly normal? Have you noticed that your thoughts seem to influence the world around you in ways that science says should be impossible? In the ancient temples of Egypt, Tibet, and India, there existed a secret knowledge so powerful that only the highest initiates were permitted to learn it. These masters understood that reality itself is nothing more than crystallized energy responding to conscious intention. They knew that every human being possesses the ability to speak the language that reorganizes matter, attracts circumstances, and literally rewrites the script of physical existence. But here's what those ancient masters discovered that will change everything you thought you knew about manifestation. You don't attract what you want. You don't even create what you think about. You project what you are at the deepest energetic level. And most people have never learned to control what they're broadcasting. If you've tried every manifestation technique without lasting results, if you've repeated affirmations until your voice was hoarse but your reality stayed the same, if you've visualized so intensely you could taste your dreams, yet they remain frustratingly out of reach, then what I'm about to share will finally explain why nothing has worked. You've been trying to change the reflection instead of changing the light that creates it. You've been speaking to the universe in a language it doesn't understand while broadcasting a frequency that contradicts every word you say. Your energy field, not your conscious thoughts, is the true architect of your reality. And by the end of our time together, you'll not only understand the 11 forgotten laws that govern this hidden realm, but you'll possess the practical tools to become a conscious master of the living energy that shapes your world. The ancient wisdom keepers didn't just believe in energy manipulation, they lived it. In the mystery schools of Atlantis, the temples of Lemuria, and the sacred chambers beneath the pyramids, initiates spent decades learning what modern quantum physics is only beginning to prove. Consciousness and energy are the fundamental building blocks of all physical reality. According to this lost knowledge, every human being operates as a living broadcasting station, constantly emitting energetic signals that organize the quantum field around them. But unlike radio or television, these signals aren't just electromagnetic waves, they're coherent patterns of consciousness that carry emotional, mental, and spiritual information directly into the fabric of space-time itself. The ancient masters called this the language of energy, a vibrational communication system that operates far below the level of conscious thought. When you learn to speak this language fluently, the universe responds with a precision that seems miraculous to those who only know how to communicate through words and actions. But here's what makes this moment in history absolutely critical. We are living through what the ancients prophesied as the Great Awakening, a time when this hidden knowledge would emerge from the secret schools and become available to anyone sincere enough to master it. The energetic veils that have kept humanity separated from its true creative power are dissolving. People across the globe are spontaneously developing abilities that were once reserved for the highest initiates. If you're drawn to this knowledge, it's not a coincidence. Your soul recognizes teachings it has encountered before in lifetimes when you yourself may have been one of these energy masters. The 11 laws I'm about to share aren't new information for your spirit. They're ancient remembrances waiting to be reactivated. This isn't happening to everyone. It's happening to specific souls who came into this incarnation carrying both the memory of these abilities and the mission to help humanity reclaim its energetic birthright during this unprecedented time of planetary transformation. You might wonder, how do we know these ancient teachings are authentic? How can we be certain this isn't just spiritual fantasy dressed up as ancient wisdom? First, consider the consistency across cultures. From the Egyptian books of the dead to the Tibetan practices of dream yoga, from the Hindu understanding of prana to the Chinese mastery of qi, every advanced civilization developed sophisticated knowledge about consciousness directing energy. They couldn't have collaborated across continents and centuries, yet their core teachings align with mathematical precision. Second, modern science is validating what the ancients knew intuitively. Quantum physicists have proven that observation changes reality at the subatomic level. The Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory documented thousands of cases where human consciousness directly influenced physical systems. The Institute of HeartMath has shown that coherent emotional states generate measurable electromagnetic fields that extend far beyond the physical body. But perhaps most compelling are the contemporary results. Across the globe, individuals who apply these ancient principles are achieving what mainstream thinking considers impossible. They're healing terminal illnesses through pure intention. They're manifesting specific opportunities with uncanny precision. They're developing psychic abilities that allow direct perception of non-physical realities. The resurgence of this knowledge isn't an accident. It's prophecy fulfilled. The ancient texts consistently predicted a time when these teachings would emerge from hiding to assist humanity through a massive evolutionary transition. That time is now. In the next hour, we're going to explore the 11 forgotten laws that govern energy manipulation. Each law builds upon the previous ones, creating a complete system for conscious reality creation. You'll discover why your previous manifestation attempts may have failed, what your body is constantly broadcasting that you're unaware of, and most importantly, how to align every level of your being to become an unstoppable force of conscious creation. By the time we're finished, you'll understand how to speak the universe's native language, how to project coherent signals that reality cannot ignore, and how to step into your birthright as a conscious co-creator of physical experience. So quiet your mind, open your energy field, and prepare to remember abilities you've always possessed but simply forgotten how to use. The ancient masters are calling you home to your true power. Let's begin. Law 1. The field responds to vibration, not intention. Imagine you're standing in front of a vast cosmic radio that controls all the circumstances of your life. This radio has thousands of frequencies, each one broadcasting a different type of experience: abundance, love, health, opportunity, or their opposites. You've been trying to tune into the frequency of your dreams by turning the dial labeled thoughts and words, but nothing seems to change the static-filled station you're receiving. What if I told you that you've been adjusting the wrong controls, that the real tuning mechanism operates on a completely different level, one that most people never learn to access consciously? What if the universe has been responding to you perfectly all along, but you've been broadcasting on a frequency you didn't know you were using? This is the first law that ancient energy masters understood completely. The quantum field doesn't read your intentions, your affirmations, or even your desperate pleas. It responds only to the vibrational signature you're emitting from the deepest layers of your being. And until you learn to control that signature, you'll keep attracting experiences that match your unconscious broadcasts, rather than your conscious desires. According to the ancient teachings preserved in the mystery schools, all physical matter exists within what they called the responsive field, an ocean of pure consciousness that takes its cues entirely from the vibrational patterns projected into it. Modern quantum physics calls this the zero-point field or quantum vacuum, but the ancients understood its responsive nature, thousands of years before we had scientific instruments to measure it. Here's the crucial distinction that changes everything. This field doesn't respond to the content of your thoughts. It responds to the emotional frequency underlying those thoughts. You can think, "I am abundant," 1,000 times, but if your nervous system is vibrating with the frequency of scarcity, the field will continue organizing experiences of lack, because that's the signal it's actually receiving. The ancient masters discovered that human beings broadcast on multiple levels simultaneously. Your mental layer generates thought patterns. Your emotional layer produces feeling tones. Your cellular layer carries inherited memories and trauma. Your energetic layer holds the imprints of all your experiences across time. Most powerfully, your soul layer emanates the deepest patterns you've developed over multiple lifetimes. The field reads all these layers, but it responds most strongly to whichever signal is most coherent and sustained. This explains why positive thinking often fails. If your emotional, cellular, and energetic layers are broadcasting fear, unworthiness, or doubt, those signals will override your mental affirmations every time. But here's the revolutionary understanding. Once you learn to bring all these layers into alignment, creating what the ancients called vibrational coherence, the field responds with a speed and precision that seems miraculous. When every level of your being is broadcasting the same frequency, you become an irresistible creative force. The mystery schools of ancient Egypt left detailed records of this principle in the Hermetic texts, particularly in the teachings attributed to Thoth. These documents describe initiates learning to achieve harmonic resonance, a state where their entire being vibrates at a single clear frequency. The texts claim that masters in this state could instantly manifest objects, heal diseases, and even influence weather patterns. Modern biofeedback research has provided striking validation of these claims. Dr. Rollin McCraty's work at the Institute of HeartMath has shown that when people achieve what they call heart coherence, a measurable alignment between heart rhythm, breathing, and brainwaves, their electromagnetic field becomes dramatically more organized and powerful. People in coherent states demonstrate enhanced intuition, improved decision-making, and the ability to positively influence others' nervous systems from several feet away. Even more remarkably, studies have documented cases where groups achieving collective coherence create measurable effects in the surrounding environment. During the transcendental meditation studies in Washington, D.C., crime rates dropped significantly when large groups practiced coherence techniques. Similar effects have been recorded during global meditation events, where everything from random number generators to earthquake activity shows anomalous patterns. The ancient principle finds validation in personal testimonies as well. Individuals who achieve vibrational coherence through the practices I'll teach you report manifestation results that defy conventional probability. They describe a sense of flowing with reality rather than struggling against it, as if the universe actively conspires to support their intentions once their entire being aligns behind them. What distinguishes these results from random coincidence is their consistency and specificity. When someone achieves true vibrational coherence around a particular outcome, that outcome typically manifests with details that exceed what they consciously planned, often arriving through unexpected but perfectly orchestrated circumstances. To begin working with this first law, you must learn to identify and modify your unconscious vibrational broadcasts. Start with what the ancients called frequency scanning. Several times daily, pause whatever you're doing and perform this simple assessment. Close your eyes and feel into your body without trying to change anything. What emotional tone is running in the background of your awareness? What does your nervous system feel like when you're not managing your mood? This background frequency is what you're actually broadcasting, regardless of your surface thoughts. Next, practice coherent breathing to begin aligning your multiple layers. Breathe slowly and deeply while focusing on a genuine feeling of gratitude or appreciation. Don't just think grateful thoughts, actually feel the emotion in your body. As you breathe, imagine this feeling expanding from your heart throughout your entire energy field. This creates the beginnings of vibrational coherence. Finally, perform what I call signal verification. Before making important requests of the universe, check whether your various layers are broadcasting consistently. Ask yourself, do my thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and deepest beliefs all agree with what I'm trying to manifest? If you sense contradiction anywhere, work on those misaligned layers before proceeding with manifestation attempts. Remember, the field is always listening, but it's responding to your total vibrational output, not just the parts you're consciously aware of. Once you understand that reality responds to vibration rather than intention, you begin to realize something profound. You haven't been failing at manifestation. You've been succeeding perfectly. Everything in your current experience matches exactly what you've been unconsciously broadcasting. This leads us to an even more startling revelation about the true nature of attraction versus projection, and why the popular law of attraction has the entire process backwards. Law 2. You don't attract, you project. What if everything you've been taught about attraction is backwards? What if you're not a magnet drawing experiences toward you, but a projector casting your inner reality outward into physical form? What if the universe isn't delivering packages to your doorstep, but simply reflecting back to you the movie that's playing inside your consciousness? This revelation shattered my understanding of manifestation completely. For years, I had visualized myself as someone with open hands, receiving abundance from external sources. I repeated affirmations designed to attract love, money, and opportunities toward me. I performed rituals intended to draw desired outcomes from somewhere out there into my personal experience. But then I encountered the ancient teachings that revealed a truth so simple yet revolutionary that it changed everything. You don't live in a universe that gives you what you ask for. You live in a universe that becomes what you are. And the difference between attracting and projecting isn't just semantic. It's the key to understanding why most manifestation attempts fail and why some people seem to effortlessly create the lives they desire. The ancient masters taught that consciousness operates like a cosmic projector, continuously broadcasting the contents of your inner world onto the screen of physical reality. Just as a movie projector doesn't attract images from the screen but projects them onto it, your consciousness doesn't draw experiences from the external world, but expresses your internal patterns through apparently external circumstances. This projection happens through what the mystery schools call vibrational emanation. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold, every memory you carry, all of these create specific energetic patterns that radiate outward from your consciousness like ripples in a pond. These patterns don't disappear after you think them. They continue broadcasting until you consciously choose to transmit something different. The crucial insight is this: the external world you experience is always a perfect reflection of your internal vibrational state. If you're experiencing a lack, it's because some part of your consciousness is projecting scarcity patterns. If you're experiencing conflict, it's because internal division is being expressed through external circumstances. If you're experiencing limitations, it's because restrictive beliefs are creating restrictive experiences. But here's where this becomes empowering rather than discouraging. Since you're the projector, you have complete control over what gets projected. You don't need to manipulate external circumstances or convince other people to change. You don't need to wait for the universe to decide whether you're worthy of your desires. You simply need to alter what you're broadcasting from within, and the external reflection will change automatically. The ancient texts are clear about this. As above, so below, as within, so without. This wasn't philosophical poetry. It was precise instruction about how consciousness creates reality through projection rather than attraction. The Hermetic axiom, as within, so without, appears in virtually every advanced spiritual tradition because ancient mystics consistently observed this projection principle in operation. The Egyptian pyramid texts describe pharaohs learning to speak reality into existence by mastering their internal states. The Hindu Upanishads teach that all of this is Brahman, meaning the external world is consciousness projecting itself in apparently objective forms. Modern psychology has documented this projection mechanism extensively, though usually in pathological contexts. We know that people with paranoid tendencies consistently encounter situations that validate their suspicions. Individuals with abandonment fears repeatedly find themselves in relationships where they're left. Those with unworthiness beliefs somehow always end up in circumstances that confirm their lack of value. But projection works positively as well. Research into optimistic bias shows that people who genuinely expect good outcomes encounter significantly more favorable circumstances than statistical probability would predict. Studies of successful entrepreneurs reveal that they don't just think positively. They operate from such deep conviction about their success that they unconsciously create conditions that support their expectations. The most compelling evidence comes from therapeutic work with trauma survivors. When individuals heal deep emotional wounds, not just mentally understanding them, but actually releasing the energetic charge they carry, their external circumstances often change dramatically without any direct action on their part. Abusive relationships end, financial struggles resolve, health issues improve, and new opportunities appear, all because the internal broadcasts that were creating problematic reflections have been transformed. Quantum physics provides theoretical support for this phenomenon through the observer effect and quantum entanglement research. If consciousness can influence reality at the subatomic level, and if all matter is ultimately quantum fields interacting with each other, then consciousness projecting patterns onto reality becomes not just possible, but inevitable. To work with the projection principle, you must first identify what you're currently projecting unconsciously. Begin with reality reflection analysis. Look at the persistent patterns in your life, the types of relationships you attract, the kinds of opportunities that appear, the recurring challenges you face. These aren't coincidences or bad luck. They're perfect reflections of whatever you're unconsciously projecting. Ask yourself, what internal state would create exactly these external circumstances? Practice projection scanning throughout your day. Notice the quality of your internal atmosphere when different events occur. If something frustrating happens, immediately tune into what you were feeling or thinking just before it manifested. You'll often discover that external events mirror internal states with remarkable precision, usually within minutes or hours of the internal shift. Develop what I call conscious broadcasting. Instead of trying to attract specific things to you, focus on embodying the internal state that would naturally project those experiences. If you want abundance, don't visualize money coming to you. Embody the internal state of someone who lives abundantly. If you want love, don't imagine someone loving you. Become someone who radiates love so naturally that loving relationships are inevitable reflections. Most importantly, take complete responsibility for your projections without self-judgment. Everything you're experiencing is information about your current broadcast settings. When you see your external reality as feedback rather than punishment, you can adjust your projections consciously instead of unconsciously. Understanding that you project reality rather than attracting it reveals why willpower and mental effort often backfire in manifestation work. When you're trying to force outcomes, you're broadcasting the energy of struggle and lack, which then gets projected as more circumstances requiring struggle and revealing lack. This brings us to a crucial principle that the ancient masters considered fundamental. Your body, not your mind, is the true broadcaster of your energetic signals. Law 3. The body speaks what the mind denies. Your mind is a skilled actor, but your body is an honest witness. While your thoughts can lie, rationalize, and pretend, your cellular structure holds the truth of every experience you've ever had and broadcasts that truth into the quantum field every moment of every day. The ancient masters knew this secret. If you want to understand what you're really creating, don't listen to your mind. Listen to your body. Have you ever noticed how certain people can say all the right words about being confident, but something in their posture makes you feel their insecurity? Or how someone can claim to be fine while their energy feels heavy and depleted? That's because the body cannot lie about your true vibrational state, no matter how convincing your mental story might be. This is why so many manifestation attempts fail. People try to override their body's honest broadcast with mental affirmations, not realizing that the quantum field responds to cellular truth, not cognitive intentions. Your body is constantly speaking to the universe in the language of energy, and that conversation determines what shows up in your reality far more than any conscious desire or positive thinking ever could. According to the ancient teachings, the human body operates as a sophisticated broadcasting system with multiple transmission channels. Every cell carries electromagnetic frequencies that extend far beyond your physical boundaries. Every organ resonates with specific emotional tones. Every system maintains energetic patterns that correspond to different types of life experiences. The mystery schools taught that unprocessed emotions don't simply disappear when we ignore them. They become encoded in our physical structure. Suppressed anger settles into the liver and creates patterns of conflict and frustration in external relationships. Unexpressed grief lodges in the lungs and attracts experiences of loss and disconnection. Fear that's never fully felt becomes stored in the kidneys and manifests as circumstances that validate insecurity and limitation. But here's what makes this particularly powerful. These cellular patterns operate completely below conscious awareness. You can spend years affirming, "I am worthy of love," while your nervous system broadcasts the frequency of abandonment based on childhood wounds you've never fully processed. The universe responds to the abandonment frequency because that's what your body is actually transmitting, regardless of what your mind is declaring. The ancient masters called this somatic truth, the body's inability to lie about your real energetic state. They discovered that lasting manifestation requires what they termed cellular coherence, aligning your physical, emotional, and energetic bodies so they all broadcast the same message. When you achieve this alignment, your manifestation power increases exponentially because every cell becomes a transmitter, sending the same clear signal. Instead of the universe receiving mixed messages from different parts of your being, it receives a coherent broadcast that it can respond to with precision and speed. The ancient Egyptians encoded this understanding in their medical papyri, which describe illness as blocked transmission, where the body could no longer send clear signals to the cosmic forces. Their healing practices focused on releasing emotional blockages that were disrupting the body's natural broadcasting abilities. Similar concepts appear in traditional Chinese medicine, where emotions are understood to directly affect organ function and energy flow. Modern research has validated these ancient insights extensively. Dr. Candace Pert's research on neuropeptides revealed that every emotion creates specific molecular messengers that travel throughout the body, literally programming cellular function based on our feeling states. Dr. Bruce Lipton's work on epigenetics shows that environmental signals, including emotional states, directly influence gene expression, meaning our feelings literally rewrite our biological programs. Even more significantly, studies in psychoneuroimmunology have documented how unresolved emotional patterns create measurable changes in immune function, hormone production, and nervous system activation. People with similar psychological profiles tend to develop similar physical symptoms, suggesting that emotional patterns really do encode themselves in biological structure. The Institute of Heart Math has measured the electromagnetic field generated by the human heart, showing that emotional states create detectable energy patterns extending several feet beyond the physical body. When people practice heart coherence techniques, not only do their personal energy fields become more organized, but they can measurably influence the nervous systems of people nearby. Perhaps most remarkably, regression therapy work has documented cases where releasing deeply held emotional patterns leads to immediate changes in chronic physical symptoms, often within hours or days. When the cellular broadcast changes, the body's structure can reorganize rapidly to match the new frequency. To work with your body's broadcasting system consciously, begin with somatic scanning, regularly checking what your body is actually transmitting beneath your mental awareness. Several times daily, pause and feel into your physical structure without trying to change anything. Notice areas of tension, contraction, or density. These aren't just physical sensations, they're energetic blockages where suppressed emotions are stored and broadcast. Ask these areas, what are you holding? What are you trying to tell me? Often insights will arise immediately. Practice cellular dialogue with persistent physical symptoms or areas of chronic tension. Instead of trying to fix or eliminate these patterns, communicate with them directly. Ask, how are you trying to protect me? What do you need me to understand? Symptoms often represent parts of your system that are broadcasting old survival programs based on past experiences. Develop emotional completion practices for feelings you've been avoiding or suppressing. When strong emotions arise, instead of managing them mentally, feel them fully in your body until they naturally release. Unexpressed emotions become cellular broadcasts that attract experiences matching their frequency. Finally, practice coherent embodiment, consciously aligning your mental intentions with your body's energy. Before important manifestation work, ensure that your physical structure feels congruent with what you're trying to create. If there's misalignment, work with your body first before attempting to manifest from your mind. When you realize that your body has been unconsciously broadcasting patterns that contradict your conscious desires, you understand why changing your thoughts alone rarely changes your reality. But there's an even deeper layer to explore: the role of coherent emotion as the universal language that the quantum field understands most clearly. Your feelings, when properly aligned, become the most powerful manifestation tool you possess. Law 4. Coherent emotion is the universal language. If the universe spoke English, manifestation would be simple. Just tell it what you want and wait for delivery. If you understood mathematics, you could calculate your desires and present them logically. But the universe speaks a language far older than words or numbers, a language that existed before human civilization and will continue long after our words are forgotten. It speaks the language of coherent emotion, feeling states so pure and aligned that they carry creative power capable of reorganizing reality itself. Think about the most powerful moment of manifestation you've ever experienced. Maybe it was meeting someone special, receiving an unexpected opportunity, or having a prayer answered in a way that felt miraculous. If you examine that experience carefully, you'll discover that it happened not when you were trying hardest to make something occur, but when you were feeling something so deeply and genuinely that your entire being was unified around that emotional state. The ancient masters called this emotional coherence, a state where every level of your consciousness resonates with the same feeling tone, creating what they described as direct communication with the creative forces of existence. When you achieve this state, you're not asking the universe for anything. You're speaking its native language so fluently that it responds automatically. According to the mystery school teachings, the quantum field doesn't process thoughts, words, or even intentions. It responds exclusively to emotional frequencies that carry what the ancients called coherent information. This means that scattered, conflicted, or artificially generated emotions produce chaotic results, while pure, sustained, genuine emotions create precise and powerful manifestations. The key distinction is between emotional reactions and emotional emanations. Reactions are what you feel in response to external circumstances. They're temporary, often contradictory, and usually mixed with mental commentary. Emanations are emotional states you generate and sustain from within, independent of external conditions. These are the frequencies that carry creative power. The ancient masters identified specific emotional frequencies that have universal creative potency. Gratitude that arises from recognizing abundance already present. Love that flows from connection to the source of all life. Peace that comes from alignment with cosmic order. Joy that emerges from remembering your true nature, and certainty that stems from knowing your unity with creative intelligence. But here's the crucial understanding. These emotions must be authentic, not manufactured. The universe can distinguish between genuine feeling states and emotional performances. When you try to fake gratitude, love, or confidence, you're actually broadcasting the frequency of effort and pretense, which creates experiences of struggle and inauthenticity. True emotional coherence happens when you discover and embody feelings that already exist within you at the deepest levels. You're not trying to generate emotions you don't feel. You're learning to access and amplify emotional truths that represent your soul's natural state. When these authentic frequencies become sustained and coherent, they reorganize reality with an ease that seems miraculous, but is actually natural law in operation. The ancient Sanskrit texts describe emotion as emotion, energy in motion, and identify specific emotional states that were considered sacred technologies for reality creation. The Bhagavad Gita speaks of yoga, not just as physical practice, but as the union of feeling and awareness that allows consciousness to operate directly upon the material world. The Christian mystics wrote extensively about what they called the prayer of the heart, emotional states so pure and sustained that they could heal diseases, manifest provisions, and even influence weather patterns. Saint Teresa of Avila described achieving union with divine consciousness through what she termed spiritual feelings that transcended ordinary emotion and gave her access to miraculous creative power. Modern research has provided remarkable validation of these claims. Studies at the Institute of Heart Math show that when people achieve heart coherence, a measurable state where heart rhythm, breathing, and brain waves align around a positive emotional tone, their electromagnetic field becomes dramatically more organized and powerful. People in this state demonstrate enhanced intuition, improved physiological function, and the ability to positively influence others' nervous systems from several feet away. Even more significantly, research into group coherence has documented cases where collective emotional states create measurable effects in the surrounding environment. During the Global Coherence Initiative studies, large groups practicing heart coherence techniques correlated with reduced crime rates, decreased emergency room visits, and even changes in random number generators in the vicinity. Dr. Masaru Emoto's water crystal experiments, while controversial, suggested that water exposed to coherent emotional states like gratitude and love forms more organized crystalline structures than water exposed to chaotic or negative emotions. Since the human body is primarily water, this implies that our emotional states directly influence our physical structure at the molecular level. The most compelling evidence comes from individuals who have mastered coherent emotion as a manifestation practice. They report results that consistently exceed chance probability, with manifestations arriving through synchronistic chains of events that seem choreographed by intelligence far beyond their personal planning abilities. To develop coherent emotion as your manifestation language, begin with authentic feeling location, identifying genuine emotional states that already exist within you rather than trying to manufacture emotions you think you should feel. Start by recalling moments when you felt profound gratitude, love, peace, or joy naturally and authentically. These don't need to be dramatic experiences. Often the most powerful emotional states are quiet and subtle. Once you identify a genuine feeling, practice returning to it through memory and breath until you can access it independent of external circumstances. Develop emotional coherence breathing, a practice where you breathe slowly and deeply while sustaining a chosen emotional state. As you inhale, imagine drawing that feeling into every cell of your body. As you exhale, imagine broadcasting that frequency into the field around you. Continue until the emotion feels stable and self-sustaining rather than requiring effort to maintain. Practice coherent communication with the universe by speaking from emotional states rather than mental desires. Instead of saying, "I want abundance," cultivate the feeling of gratitude for abundance already flowing through your life, then speak from that state. Instead of requesting love, embody the frequency of love so completely that loving experiences become inevitable. Most importantly, learn to distinguish between authentic and performed emotions. Genuine emotional coherence feels effortless once established. It's a natural state you're remembering rather than an artificial state you're creating. If you feel strain or effort, you're probably trying too hard. Return to authenticity and simplicity. Mastering coherent emotion transforms you from someone who begs the universe for favors into someone who speaks its native language fluently. But even this profound skill operates within a larger principle that the ancients considered the foundation of all reality creation: the understanding that you are not separate from what you observe, and that the very act of observation from different states of consciousness literally changes what can be observed and experienced. Law 5. The observer changes the observed. What if the most revolutionary discovery in quantum physics was actually ancient knowledge that mystery school initiates mastered thousands of years ago? What if the famous observer effect, where particles behave differently when being watched, isn't just a strange property of subatomic matter, but a fundamental principle governing all of reality, including your daily life experiences? Every moment, you're not just witnessing your reality. You're actively creating it through the quality of consciousness you bring to your observations. The stressed version of you literally sees a different world than the peaceful version of you. The grateful version of you experiences different opportunities than the victim version of you. This isn't just a psychological perspective. It's quantum mechanics operating at the macro level of everyday existence. The ancient masters knew this secret: change the observer, and you change the entire universe that observer can experience. They spent lifetimes learning to shift their consciousness deliberately, not just to feel better about their circumstances, but to actually alter what circumstances were possible within their reality. Today, we're going to explore how you can apply this principle to become a conscious creator of your experiential universe. According to both ancient wisdom and quantum physics, reality doesn't exist independently of consciousness. It emerges from the interaction between awareness and possibility. The mystery schools taught that what you call objective reality is actually a continuously created collaborative manifestation between your consciousness and the infinite field of potential that surrounds you. Here's the key insight. Different states of consciousness have access to different ranges of possibility. When you observe your life from fear, you can only perceive and interact with the possibilities that exist within fear's frequency range. When you observe from love, an entirely different set of possibilities becomes available. When you observe from anger, you access different potentials than when you observe from peace. The ancients called this dimensional shifting, not traveling to other planets, but accessing different dimensions of possibility that exist parallel to each other within the same apparent space. Each state of consciousness acts like a key that unlocks different chambers within the infinite mansion of potential experience. This explains why two people can live in apparently identical circumstances, yet have completely different life experiences. They're not just interpreting the same reality differently, they're actually accessing different realities based on the observational consciousness they're habitually employing. But here's where this becomes practical magic. You can learn to shift your observational consciousness deliberately. Instead of being a victim of whatever state happens to arise, you can choose which dimension of possibility to explore by consciously changing the quality of awareness you bring to your circumstances. When you master this ability, you gain access to what the ancients called the keys to all kingdoms, the power to explore any dimension of experience through conscious choice of observational state. The ancient Egyptian texts describe initiates learning what they called the multiple eyes of Horus, different modes of perception that revealed different layers of reality. The Tibetan Book of the Dead extensively documents how consciousness at death experiences completely different realms, based on the mental states achieved during the transition. These weren't considered metaphorical teachings, but precise instructions for navigating consciousness-dependent realities. Modern quantum physics has provided stunning validation of these principles. The double-slit experiment demonstrates that subatomic particles exist in all possible states simultaneously until observed, at which point they collapse into specific behaviors based on how they're being measured. Even more remarkably, delayed choice experiments show that present observations can influence past events, suggesting that consciousness operates outside linear time. Dr. Dean Radin's research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has documented how human intention can influence random number generators, demonstrating that consciousness affects physical systems in measurable ways. Studies of remote viewing have shown that trained observers can accurately perceive distant locations, with accuracy rates that far exceed chance probability. The field of positive psychology has documented how different mental states literally change what people notice and experience in identical environments. Individuals in optimistic states notice more opportunities, remember more positive details, and encounter more favorable social interactions than those in pessimistic states, even when placed in exactly the same circumstances. Perhaps most significantly, therapeutic work with trauma survivors reveals that healing often involves learning to observe past events from different states of consciousness. When clients revisit traumatic memories from states of compassion, safety, or wisdom rather than fear, they often discover entirely different meanings and possibilities within the same experiences. The facts don't change, but the reality those facts create transforms completely. Neuroscience research supports this phenomenon, showing that different emotional states activate different neural networks, literally changing which aspects of experience the brain can process and remember. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work demonstrates that people who learn to observe their lives from elevated emotional states develop new neural pathways that make previously impossible experiences accessible. The most compelling evidence comes from individuals who have mastered conscious observation shifting. They report that learning to observe their circumstances from different states of consciousness is like having access to multiple parallel lives within the same apparent timeline. Each observational state reveals different opportunities, different potentials, and different versions of other people's behavior toward them. To work with the observer, effect consciously, begin with consciousness state scanning, becoming aware of the quality of awareness you're currently bringing to your experiences. Throughout your day, pause regularly and ask, what state of consciousness am I observing from right now? Notice if you're looking at your life through the lens of stress, excitement, boredom, gratitude, frustration, or any other specific state. Each state reveals and conceals different aspects of your reality. Practice observational shifting by deliberately changing your state of consciousness before important interactions or decisions. If you're about to have a difficult conversation, first shift into a state of curiosity or compassion, then observe how different possibilities become available. If you're facing a challenge, observe it first from stress, then from excitement, then from peace, and notice how each perspective reveals different potential solutions. Develop dimensional exploration by consciously choosing which frequency of consciousness to explore during specific activities. Before entering your workplace, choose whether to observe efficiency, creativity, service, or growth. Before social gatherings, decide whether to observe from connection, learning, fun, or contribution. Each choice opens different experiential doorways. Most importantly, practice witness consciousness, observing your own observing. Notice how your state of consciousness affects not just how you feel about your circumstances, but what circumstances actually appear and how other people respond to you. This awareness reveals the creative power of consciousness itself. Understanding that you change reality through the consciousness you bring to observing it reveals why some people seem to live charmed lives while others struggle constantly. They're literally accessing different dimensional possibilities through their habitual observational states. But there's an even deeper layer to explore: the unconscious patterns that determine which observational states feel available to you, and how these patterns often operate like invisible guardians, protecting you from experiences your psyche believes might be dangerous. Law 6. The guardian pattern controls access. Deep within your psyche lives an ancient guardian, whose job is to keep you safe by ensuring you only experience realities that feel familiar and survivable. This guardian was created during your earliest years, when your nervous system learned what kinds of experiences meant safety and what kinds meant danger. Now, decades later, this same protective mechanism controls which dimensions of possibility you can access, which emotional states feel sustainable, and which levels of abundance, love, or success your system will allow you to experience. This is why you might sabotage yourself just as success arrives, why you might feel anxious when things are going too well, or why certain positive affirmations feel empty, or even create resistance in your body. Your guardian pattern isn't trying to limit you out of malice. It's trying to protect you based on very old information about what's safe in this world. The ancient masters called this the guardian at the threshold, an internal gatekeeper that must be understood and integrated before higher levels of manifestation become possible. Until you learn to work with this guardian consciously, it will continue operating from childhood programming, keeping you within the bounds of what felt safe when you were young, regardless of what's actually possible for you now. According to the mystery school teachings, every human develops what they call a survival frequency, a specific range of experience that their nervous system learned to navigate successfully during their formative years. This frequency includes certain levels of love, abundance, visibility, power, and joy that feel safe and familiar, while experiences beyond these ranges trigger unconscious alarm systems that work to restore the familiar limitations. The guardian pattern operates through multiple mechanisms. It influences which thoughts feel believable and which feel like fantasy. It determines which emotional states feel sustainable and which trigger anxiety or disconnection. It controls how much success, love, or happiness your system can handle before unconscious sabotage patterns activate. Most powerfully, it shapes your vibrational emissions to ensure that you continue attracting experiences that match your original survival programming. Here's the crucial insight. This guardian was created by a child's understanding of reality, but it continues operating with adult-level power. A 5-year-old who learned that being too happy led to disappointment might develop a guardian that prevents sustained joy. A child who learned that being visible led to criticism might create a guardian who sabotages success. A young person who learned that receiving love meant losing independence might develop a guardian who prevents intimate relationships. The ancient masters discovered that lasting transformation requires what they called guardian integration, a conscious dialogue with these protective patterns that honors their original purpose while updating their programming based on current reality. When you achieve this integration, the guardian becomes an ally that supports your expansion rather than an unconscious force that limits it. This process isn't about eliminating or overriding your protective mechanisms. It's about bringing them into conscious collaboration with your current goals and understanding. A properly integrated guardian becomes a wise advisor that supports sustainable growth rather than an unconscious saboteur that prevents all growth. The ancient Greek mysteries included specific initiations designed to help candidates encounter and integrate their guardian patterns. These rites of passage were understood as essential preparation for accessing higher levels of consciousness and creative power. Similar practices appear in shamanic traditions worldwide, where initiates must face their internal guardians before receiving power to work with natural forces. Modern psychology has extensively documented these protective mechanisms under various names. Attachment theory describes how early relationship patterns create templates that unconsciously control adult relationships. Cognitive behavioral therapy recognizes core beliefs formed in childhood that continue shaping adult experience. Trauma therapy works with protective parts that developed to help individuals survive difficult circumstances, but now interfere with healthy functioning. Neuroscience research shows that the nervous system develops threat detection patterns during early development that remain active throughout life, unless consciously addressed. Dr. Stephen Porges's work on polyvagal theory demonstrates how the autonomic nervous system creates safety and danger assessments that operate completely below conscious awareness, controlling everything from social engagement to creative expression. The field of family constellation work has revealed how unconscious loyalty to family patterns can prevent individuals from achieving success or happiness that exceeds what their family system experienced. People often unconsciously limit themselves to avoid betraying or abandoning family members who struggled with similar issues. Perhaps most significantly, regression therapy work consistently reveals that many manifestation blocks stem from unconscious decisions made during childhood to avoid experiences that once felt dangerous. These decisions continue operating decades later, preventing people from accessing experiences they now consciously desire. When these unconscious decisions are brought to awareness and consciously updated, manifestation abilities often increase dramatically within weeks or months. Successful manifestation practitioners report that their biggest breakthroughs came not from learning new techniques, but from discovering and healing unconscious patterns that were preventing their techniques from working effectively. To work with your guardian pattern consciously, begin with safety threshold identification, discovering where your system's automatic limits are located. Notice areas of your life where you consistently achieve a certain level of success, happiness, or abundance, but seem unable to go beyond that point. These plateaus often mark the boundaries of your safety zone as defined by your guardian pattern. Ask yourself, what might feel dangerous about having more than this? Practice guardian dialogue when you notice self-sabotage or resistance patterns arising. Instead of fighting these patterns, communicate with them directly. Ask, what are you trying to protect me from? What do you need me to understand? Often, simply acknowledging the guardian's protective intention begins the integration process. Develop graduated expansion practices that honor your system's need for safety while gently extending your comfort zone. Instead of trying to leap into dramatically different experiences, take small steps that prove to your guardian that expansion can happen safely. This builds trust between your conscious desires and your protective mechanisms. When working with manifestation techniques, include your guardian in the process. Before attempting to create something significantly beyond your current experience, ask your protective patterns if they feel safe with this expansion. If not, work with the underlying safety concerns before proceeding with manifestation attempts. Most importantly, practice patience and compassion with your protective patterns. They were created by the wisest part of you available at the time, and they've successfully kept you alive until now. Honor their service while gradually updating their programming based on your current capabilities and circumstances. When you understand that unconscious guardian patterns control your access to different levels of experience, you realize why manifestation sometimes feels like you're battling invisible forces, because you are. But there's a deeper layer still. The way reality itself seems to conspire to reflect back to you exactly what you most need to see about yourself, as if the entire universe were operating as a cosmic mirror designed to show you the contents of your own consciousness. Law 7. Reality is a mirror that never lies. What if everyone who triggers you is actually showing you a disowned part of yourself? What if every frustrating situation in your life is reflecting back a pattern you haven't yet recognized within your own consciousness? What if the universe operates as a perfectly accurate mirror that shows you exactly what you're broadcasting, especially the frequencies you're unconscious of or trying to hide from yourself? This might be the most uncomfortable truth in all of spiritual teaching, but it's also the most liberating. Every person, situation, and experience in your life exists to show you something about your own internal state. The angry people reflect your unacknowledged anger. The unavailable people mirror your own unavailability. The judgmental people show you your hidden judgments. The universe doesn't punish or reward. It simply reflects with perfect precision. The ancient masters called this the law of correspondence, as within, so without. They understood that external reality serves as a feedback system for consciousness, always showing you exactly what needs to be integrated, healed, or transformed within yourself. Once you truly grasp this principle, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become a conscious interpreter of the cosmic messages constantly being delivered through your daily experience. According to the mystery school teachings, the universe operates as what they call the cosmic mirror, a reflection system that shows you the contents of your consciousness through apparently external experiences. This isn't just metaphorical poetry, it's a precise description of how consciousness creates reality through projection and reflection. The mirror operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Your relationships reflect your relationship with yourself. Your financial circumstances mirror your internal sense of worthiness and abundance. Your health reflects the harmony or discord within your emotional and spiritual bodies. Your opportunities mirror your beliefs about what's possible for someone like you. But here's the sophisticated part. The mirror doesn't just show you your conscious beliefs and feelings. It primarily reflects your unconscious patterns, especially the ones you're avoiding, denying, or trying to hide from yourself. This is why your triggers are so valuable. They point directly to aspects of yourself that you haven't fully integrated or accepted. The ancient masters taught that there are no accidents in the mirror. Every person who appears in your life, every situation you encounter, every challenge that arises carries specific information about your internal state. The universe doesn't make mistakes or create random experiences. It provides precisely calibrated feedback designed to support your consciousness development. This understanding transforms your relationship with difficult experiences completely. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this showing me about myself?" Instead of trying to change other people or fix external circumstances, you focus on integrating whatever internal pattern is creating the reflection. When you master this principle, you gain access to constant, real-time feedback about your consciousness. Your external reality becomes a dashboard that shows you exactly what frequencies you're broadcasting and what patterns need attention for your continued evolution. The Hermetic tradition preserved this teaching in the axiom, "As above, so below, as within, so without." The ancient Egyptian temples included mirror work as a fundamental spiritual practice, where initiates learned to recognize their internal states reflected in temple relationships and circumstances. The Hindu concept of Maya describes the external world as a reflection of consciousness rather than an independent reality. Carl Jung's work on projection and shadow extensively documented how people unconsciously see their disowned aspects reflected in others. His research showed that the qualities we most intensely judge or are attracted to in others typically represent parts of ourselves we haven't fully acknowledged or integrated. This pattern appears so consistently that it's become a standard principle in depth psychology. Family systems therapy has revealed how family patterns repeat across generations, with children unconsciously recreating the same relationship dynamics they experienced in childhood. These repetitions continue until someone in the system gains enough consciousness to recognize the pattern and choose differently. This suggests that external relationships really do mirror internal programs. Cognitive bias research reveals that people notice and retain information that supports their opinions and ignore contrary data. Due to confirmation bias, people with different internal beliefs perceive different realities in identical circumstances, supporting the premise that outward experience mirrors inside condition. The field of positive psychology has documented how people's habitual emotional states correlate strongly with the types of opportunities, relationships, and experiences they encounter. Optimistic people don't just feel better about their circumstances, they actually experience more positive circumstances, as if their internal state attracts corresponding external experiences. Perhaps most compelling are the testimonies of individuals who have done intensive inner work and observed how their external circumstances changed in direct proportion to their internal transformations. When they heal relationship patterns, their relationships improve. When they resolve money issues, their finances stabilize. When they release victim consciousness, they stop encountering victimizing situations. To work with reality as a mirror, develop reflection recognition, the ability to see your internal patterns reflected in external experiences. When someone or something triggers a strong emotional reaction in you, immediately ask, what aspect of myself might this be reflecting? Look not just at the obvious parallels, but at subtle correspondences. The person who frustrates you with their inability to commit might be showing you your own commitment issues in different areas. The situation that makes you feel powerless might reflect places where you're giving your power away unconsciously. Practice pattern tracking by noting recurring themes in your relationships and experiences. If you consistently encounter people who are unreliable, ask what part of you might be unreliable. If you repeatedly face financial stress, explore what beliefs about worthiness or safety might be creating that reflection. If you often feel misunderstood, examine how you might be misunderstanding yourself or others. Develop mirror gratitude, appreciating difficult people and situations as teachers showing you valuable information about your consciousness. Instead of resenting challenging experiences, thank them for the feedback they're providing. This shift in attitude often leads to rapid resolution of problematic patterns because you're no longer resisting the lessons they're offering. Use consciousness adjustment when you recognize a pattern in the mirror. Instead of trying to change the external reflection, focus on transforming the internal state that's creating it. If you're seeing judgment reflected everywhere, work on releasing your own judgmental patterns. If you're experiencing abandonment, heal your relationship with abandoning yourself. Most importantly, practice mirror detachment, observing your reflections with curiosity rather than self-criticism. The mirror isn't showing you these patterns to make you feel bad about yourself, but to give you information for your growth and evolution. Understanding reality as a perfect mirror transforms every experience into valuable feedback about your consciousness. But there's an even more empowering realization. Once you learn to read the mirror accurately, you can begin consciously creating the reflections you want to see by deliberately shifting your internal states. This brings us to the practice of manifestation without neediness, creating from fullness rather than emptiness, and why this distinction determines the speed and sustainability of everything you create. Law 8. Manifestation without neediness multiplies power. There's a paradox at the heart of all creation. The more desperately you need something to manifest, the more you push it away. The more urgently you require a specific outcome, the more you broadcast the very frequency of lack that prevents its arrival. The ancient masters discovered this cosmic irony thousands of years ago and developed practices to create from a state of fullness rather than emptiness, desire rather than desperation, and preference rather than attachment. Think about the times when manifestation felt effortless for you. Chances are you weren't clinging to the outcome with white knuckles. You weren't constantly checking to see if it was arriving. You weren't questioning whether you deserved it or whether it was really possible. You were probably in a state of inspired action mixed with relaxed trust, creating because it felt natural rather than because you felt incomplete without the result. This is the difference between manifestation from neediness and manifestation from wholeness. One broadcasts scarcity and creates more scarcity. The other broadcasts abundance and creates exponential abundance. Learning to distinguish between these two states and cultivate the one that actually works is perhaps the most practical skill any conscious creator can develop. According to the ancient teachings, neediness is the enemy of manifestation because it contains within itself the very thing it claims to want to eliminate, the experience of lack. When you manifest from neediness, you're telling the universe, "I don't have this thing, and I need it to feel complete." That statement of incompleteness becomes your strongest vibrational broadcast, ensuring that you continue experiencing incompleteness regardless of your manifestation techniques. The mystery schools taught that true creative power emerges only from what they called the state of fullness, a consciousness that recognizes its own completeness, independent of external circumstances. From this state, you create not because you need something to feel better, but because creation itself is your natural expression of an already whole and abundant being. This fullness isn't about having everything you want materially. It's about recognizing the source of satisfaction within yourself, rather than searching for it in external achievements or acquisitions. When you discover this internal source, your manifestation power increases exponentially because you're no longer broadcasting mixed signals about whether you really have access to what you're trying to create. The ancient masters described 3 distinct levels of creation. Neediness-based creation is the weakest and most unstable. It may produce temporary results, but they tend to disappear or require constant effort to maintain. Preference-based creation is stronger and more sustainable. You're creating from desire rather than desperation, which allows cleaner manifestation. But the most powerful level is what they called expression-based creation, creating simply because it's your nature to create, the way flowers bloom, not because they need to prove their beauty, but because blooming is their natural expression. When you achieve this highest level of creation, you're no longer trying to get something from the universe. You're giving something to it. This shift from taking to giving fundamentally changes your vibrational signature and dramatically increases your creative power. The ancient Taoist texts extensively describe Wu Wei, effortless action that flows from inner completeness rather than external compulsion. Masters who achieved this state were said to accomplish extraordinary things with minimal effort because they were working with natural forces rather than against their own internal resistance. Similar concepts appear in the Bhagavad Gita as desireless action and in Buddhist teachings as non-attachment. The Christian mystics wrote about what they called holy indifference, a state where they desired only what God desired, freeing them from personal neediness and allowing divine will to flow through them unobstructed. Many reported that their prayers were answered most powerfully when they reached this state of spiritual surrender, combined with active faith. Modern psychology recognizes this phenomenon in studies of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Research consistently shows that people motivated by internal satisfaction and authentic self-expression perform better and experience more fulfillment than those motivated by external rewards or the need to prove themselves. This suggests that neediness-based action is inherently less effective than fullness-based action. Studies of successful entrepreneurs reveal that the most successful ones often display what researchers call passionate detachment. They care deeply about their work, but aren't emotionally attached to specific outcomes. This allows them to take bigger risks, make clearer decisions, and persist through setbacks without the emotional volatility that derails neediness-based efforts. The field of sports psychology has documented how athletes perform best when they're in the zone, a state characterized by effortless action without attachment to results. Athletes who try too hard or become overly focused on winning often perform worse than those who focus on expressing their abilities naturally. This pattern appears across all performance domains. Perhaps most significantly, individuals who practice manifestation from fullness rather than neediness report not only better results, but also more sustainable satisfaction with those results. They describe feeling that their manifestations arrive as natural expressions of who they're becoming, rather than external validations they need to feel worthy or complete. To develop manifestation without neediness, begin with fullness cultivation, regularly connecting with the sense of completeness that exists within you, independent of external circumstances. Practice internal source recognition by identifying what you're hoping external manifestations will give you: security, love, validation, freedom, excitement, then finding ways to access those same qualities from internal sources. If you want more money for security, cultivate the feeling of being provided for by the universe. If you want a relationship for love, develop a loving relationship with yourself. This isn't about pretending you don't want external things, but about not depending on them for your essential well-being. Develop preference over attachment by holding your desires lightly rather than desperately. Practice saying, "I would love for this to manifest, and I'm also fine if it doesn't," while feeling both parts of that statement authentically. This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's recognizing that your happiness doesn't depend on any specific outcome. Use expression-based intention when working with manifestation techniques. Instead of asking, "What do I need to feel complete?" ask, "What wants to be expressed through me?" or "How can I contribute to the universe today?" This shifts you from taking energy to giving energy, which dramatically increases your creative power. Practice outcome independence by focusing more on the quality of consciousness you bring to your actions than on their specific results. Celebrate your courage, creativity, and authenticity regardless of external outcomes. This builds the internal foundation of fullness that makes powerful manifestation possible. Finally, regularly ask yourself, am I creating from fear of not having enough, or from excitement about expressing what's already within me? Let this question guide you back to fullness-based creation whenever you notice neediness arising. When you master manifestation without neediness, you discover that you already contain everything you've been seeking externally. This realization leads to an even more profound understanding. Your doubt isn't separate from your faith. It's often faith in disguise, and learning to work with doubt consciously rather than fighting it can dramatically accelerate your manifestation results. Let's explore how doubt, when properly understood, becomes one of your most powerful creative tools. Law 9. Doubt is faith in reverse. What if doubt isn't the enemy of manifestation but its unrecognized partner? What if the energy you've been using to doubt your abilities is exactly the same energy you could use to create miracles, just pointed in the opposite direction? What if your capacity for doubt actually reveals the depth of your capacity for faith, and learning to redirect that energy is the key to unlocking manifestation abilities you never knew you possessed? Most people try to eliminate doubt, but the ancient masters discovered something far more sophisticated. Doubt is actually misplaced creative power. When you doubt, you're using the exact same mental and emotional faculties you use when you have faith. Focus, emotional energy, imagination, and conviction, but you're applying them to outcomes you don't want instead of outcomes you do want. This realization changes everything about how you work with doubt. Instead of seeing it as evidence that you're not spiritual enough or that manifestation doesn't work for you, you can recognize it as proof that you possess enormous creative power. The question isn't whether you have the ability to create reality through consciousness. Your doubt proves you already do. The only question is whether you'll consciously direct that ability toward what you want or unconsciously direct it toward what you fear. According to the mystery school teachings, doubt and faith are identical forces operating in opposite directions. Both require the same psychological ingredients: the ability to imagine scenarios that aren't currently visible, the power to generate strong emotions about potential futures, the capacity to maintain focus on unseen possibilities, and the strength to believe in outcomes before they manifest. When you doubt, you're having perfect faith in negative outcomes. You're visualizing failure with crystal clarity. You're generating strong emotions about unwanted possibilities. You're maintaining focused attention on problems. You're believing absolutely in your limitations. This is a sophisticated manifestation work. It's just manifesting what you don't want instead of what you do want. The ancient masters called this reverse creation and taught that people who struggle with manifestation are often incredibly powerful creators who have simply been applying their abilities unconsciously in counterproductive directions. They discovered that teaching someone to doubt less is far less effective than teaching them to redirect their doubt energy toward positive creation. This understanding reveals why positive thinking often fails. It tries to eliminate doubt rather than transform it. But doubt contains tremendous energy that can be harvested and redirected. When you learn to take the intensity you usually apply to worrying and channel it toward positive visualization, or take the focus you usually give to problems and direct it toward solutions, your manifestation power increases exponentially. The key is learning to recognize doubt as faith in disguise and consciously choosing to apply that same energy toward outcomes you actually want. This isn't about pretending problems don't exist or forcing optimism. It's about recognizing that you have a choice about where to direct the creative force that flows through your consciousness, and choosing to aim it toward your preferred outcomes rather than your feared ones. The ancient Stoic philosophers extensively documented this principle, teaching that human beings have the power to direct their mental energy toward either virtuous or destructive outcomes, but they cannot avoid creating some outcome through their thinking patterns. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about choosing where to place his attention and how this choice determined his entire experience of reality. The Hindu concept of sankalpa describes the same principle, the power of resolved intention that can be directed toward any outcome. The Yoga Sutras teach that the mind has inherent creative power, called vritti, that can be either scattered and destructive or focused and beneficial, but it cannot be made inactive. The choice is always between unconscious and conscious application of this force. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy has documented how catastrophic thinking uses the same mental processes as positive visualization, detailed imagination, emotional engagement, and sustained focus, but applies them to unwanted outcomes. Studies show that people with anxiety disorders often possess exceptionally strong visualization abilities and vivid imaginations, suggesting that doubt and faith share common psychological mechanisms. Research into defensive pessimism reveals that some people use negative thinking as a strategy for feeling prepared and in control, not because they lack confidence, but because worry feels like productive action. This suggests that doubt often masks a desire to create positive outcomes through mental preparation, even when the method is counterproductive. Neuroscience research shows that the brain pathways involved in positive and negative visualization are nearly identical, with the primary difference being the emotional valence attached to the mental images. This supports the ancient teaching that doubt and faith are the same force with opposite orientations. Perhaps most compellingly, many successful manifestation practitioners report that their biggest breakthroughs came not from eliminating doubt, but from learning to channel their doubt energy into positive creation. They describe taking the same intensity they once applied to worrying and redirecting it toward focused positive intention, often with dramatic results. Athletes who overcome performance anxiety often use similar techniques, learning to transform nervous energy into focused determination rather than trying to eliminate the energy entirely. To transform doubt into creative power, begin with Doubt energy recognition. Noticing the actual psychological ingredients you use when doubting so you can consciously redirect them. The next time you catch yourself doubting or worrying, pause and inventory the mental processes involved. Notice how clearly you're visualizing unwanted outcomes. Observe how much emotional energy you're generating about potential problems. Feel how focused and persistent your attention becomes when examining difficulties. This is evidence of your creative power, not proof of your limitations. Practice energy redirection by taking the same intensity you were applying to doubt and consciously pointing it toward positive outcomes. If you were visualizing failure with crystal clarity, use that same clarity to visualize success. If you were generating strong emotions about problems, generate equally strong emotions about solutions. If you were focusing persistently on obstacles, focus persistently on opportunities. Develop conscious worry as a manifestation technique. When you notice yourself worrying about something, ask, if I'm going to use this much mental and emotional energy anyway, how can I direct it toward what I actually want? Then engage in deliberate positive creation with the same intensity you were unconsciously applying to negative creation. Use doubt reversal by examining your specific doubts and consciously affirming their opposites with equal conviction. If you doubt you're capable of success, practice believing in your capabilities with the same intensity you previously applied to believing in your limitations. This isn't about forcing optimism, but about consciously choosing where to aim your creative force. Most importantly, practice power recognition. Acknowledging that your ability to doubt proves you possess the fundamental capacities needed for conscious creation. Thank you, doubt, for showing you how powerful your mind really is. Then choose to apply that power constructively. When you realize that doubt is simply misplaced creative power, you understand why some of the most successful manifestors are people who used to be chronic worriers. They already possessed the psychological intensity needed for powerful creation. This insight leads us to an even more fundamental understanding. Everything you need for manifestation already exists within you, and the final law reveals how to stop seeking power outside yourself and start remembering the source that has always been available within. Law 10. Return to center. You are the source. After exploring 9 laws of energy manipulation, we arrive at the truth that renders all techniques secondary. You are not someone who learns to use power. You are power, temporarily forgetting its own nature. You are not a human being trying to access cosmic forces. You are cosmic force expressing itself through human experience. You are not seeking connection to the source of creation. You are the source of creation, experiencing itself from a particular point of consciousness. This isn't spiritual poetry or New Age positive thinking. This is the fundamental reality that every mystery school student eventually discovers. What you've been calling manifestation is actually just the natural function of consciousness itself. What you've been treating as special abilities are simply your normal capacities becoming conscious. What you've been seeking outside yourself has always been the very awareness that's doing the seeking. The journey through all the previous laws has been preparing you for this moment of recognition, not learning something new, but remembering what you've always been. Today we explore how to stop trying to become powerful and start remembering that you never stopped being power itself, just temporarily convinced of a smaller story about who you are. According to the deepest teachings of every mystery tradition, individual consciousness is not separate from universal consciousness. It's universal consciousness experiencing itself from a localized perspective. You are not contained within the universe. The universe is arising within you. You are not subject to cosmic laws. You are cosmic law expressing itself as apparently individual experience. This understanding completely reframes the entire manifestation process. Instead of trying to convince external forces to give you what you want, you're simply remembering your true nature as the creative principle itself. Instead of learning to manipulate energy, you're reclaiming your identity as the source from which all energy flows. Instead of developing special abilities, you're removing the mental constructs that have been obscuring your natural creative power. The ancient masters called this returning to center, not traveling somewhere new, but recognizing where you've always been. They taught that all spiritual seeking eventually leads to this moment of recognition. You are not a separate being trying to connect with power, but power itself that has temporarily forgotten its own nature through identification with limitation. This doesn't mean your personality disappears or that you become grandiose about your human abilities. It means you recognize that the same consciousness that moves galaxies and grows flowers is the consciousness that looks through your eyes and makes decisions in your life. You are the universe, experiencing itself subjectively from your particular vantage point. When this recognition becomes stable, manifestation stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You don't create reality through effort, but through being authentically yourself, because your authentic self is the creative force of existence, expressing uniquely through your individual perspective. Every mystical tradition ultimately teaches this same recognition through different language. The Hindu Vedas declare Tattvam Asi, thou art that, meaning your essential nature is identical to universal consciousness. The Buddhist teaching of no self reveals that what you call self is actually empty of independent existence, meaning individual consciousness is universal consciousness appearing as individuality. The Christian mystics spoke of union with God, not as two separate beings connecting, but as recognizing that separation was always an illusion. Meister Eckhart wrote, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me." The Sufi tradition teaches that the lover, beloved, and love are ultimately one consciousness appearing as three. Modern physics has begun approaching similar conclusions. Quantum mechanics reveals that consciousness and matter are inextricably linked, suggesting that consciousness might be fundamental rather than emergent. The observer effect demonstrates that consciousness doesn't just witness reality, but participates in its creation at the most basic level. Neuroscience research into altered states of consciousness consistently documents experiences where people report feeling identical with universal consciousness while maintaining individual awareness. These aren't hallucinations, but direct experiences of the relationship between local and universal consciousness that mystics have described for millennia. The most compelling evidence comes from individuals who have stabilized this recognition in daily life. They report that manifestation becomes effortless, not because they've learned better techniques, but because they've stopped believing in separation between themselves and the creative force of existence. They describe acting from inspiration rather than desperation, creating from overflow rather than emptiness, and experiencing life as a continuous expression of their deepest nature, rather than a struggle to get needs met by external sources. These individuals often report that their biggest manifestations happen without conscious effort. They simply follow their natural impulses and find that reality organizes around their authentic expression in ways that exceed what they could have planned mentally. To stabilize this recognition, practice source remembrance, regularly returning your attention to the awareness that's aware of all your experiences, rather than focusing only on the experiences themselves. Throughout your day, ask yourself, what is aware of this moment? Notice that beneath all your thoughts, emotions, and sensations is an unchanging awareness that witnesses everything, but is not disturbed by anything it witnesses. This awareness is not personal to you. It's the same awareness that looks through every pair of eyes and experiences itself through every perspective. Practice creation as expression, rather than creation as acquisition. Instead of asking, what do I want to get from life? Ask, what wants to be expressed through me? Or, how can the creative force express itself uniquely through my perspective today? This shifts you. Practice creation as expression rather than creation as acquisition. Instead of asking, what do I want to get from life? Ask, what wants to be expressed through me? Or, how can the creative force express itself uniquely through my perspective today? This shifts you from believing you're separate from the source to recognizing yourself as the source expressing through your individual perspective. Develop center-returning practices for moments when you feel powerless or disconnected. When challenges arise, instead of trying to fix them from a sense of limitation, pause and ask, if I am the source of this experience, What is it trying to show me or express through me? This doesn't mean you caused problems deliberately, but that your consciousness is large enough to include and transform any experience. Practice effortless action by following your genuine impulses rather than forcing outcomes through willpower. Notice the difference between actions that arise from inspiration and those that come from desperation or should-based thinking. When you act from your center, even ordinary activities become expressions of your deepest nature. Use identity remembrance statements that reconnect you with your true nature. I am the awareness in which all experience arises. I am the creative principle expressing uniquely through this perspective. I am the source, temporarily experiencing itself as this individual. Feel these statements in your body rather than just thinking them mentally. Most importantly, practice being before doing. Establishing yourself in the recognition of your true nature before attempting any manifestation work. When you create from this center, everything becomes an expression of wholeness rather than an attempt to fix incompleteness. When you recognize yourself as the source of your experience rather than the victim of circumstances, you understand why the ancient masters taught that the ultimate spiritual achievement isn't gaining special powers, but remembering your ordinary nature as consciousness itself. This recognition leads us to the final law. How to stabilize this understanding and live from it consistently, even when the world around you seems to contradict your true nature. The final law reveals how to maintain center in chaos and express your source nature through any circumstances life presents. Law 11. Maintain center in chaos. The ultimate test of spiritual mastery isn't whether you can meditate peacefully in a quiet room or manifest desires when everything is going well. The ultimate test is whether you can remain centered in your true nature when chaos erupts around you. When everything seems to be falling apart, when the world appears to contradict everything you've learned about consciousness and creation. This is when your understanding either proves authentic or reveals itself as a mere spiritual concept. The ancient masters faced this same challenge. They could achieve profound states of consciousness in temples and monasteries, but could they maintain their center when facing war, plague, political upheaval, or personal tragedy? Could they continue creating consciously when circumstances seemed to mock their spiritual understanding? Could they embody their truth when external evidence suggested they were powerless? This 11th law is both the most challenging and the most liberating, learning to maintain your center, not despite chaos, but through chaos. Discovering that turbulence can actually strengthen your connection to the source if you know how to work with it consciously. Realizing that chaos often contains exactly the energy needed for your next level of spiritual evolution, if you can learn to surf it rather than resist it. According to the deepest mystery school teachings, chaos isn't the opposite of order. It's order in transition. Every period of apparent breakdown is actually breakthrough energy that hasn't yet found its new form. The ancient masters learned to recognize chaos as concentrated creative potential, looking for conscious direction rather than random destruction requiring defensive resistance. The key insight is that your center isn't a place you go to escape chaos. It's the stable point from which you can engage chaos creatively. When you're truly centered, chaos becomes raw material for conscious creation rather than a threat to your peace. You learn to work with turbulent energy rather than trying to control or eliminate it. This requires understanding the difference between being centered and being calm. Calm is a temporary emotional state that depends on external circumstances. The center is your essential nature that remains stable regardless of what's happening around you. You can be completely centered while experiencing intense emotions, facing major challenges, or navigating uncertain situations. The ancient masters developed what they called dynamic stability, the ability to remain rooted in source while moving fluidly through whatever experiences life presents. They learned to see chaos as cosmic surf, powerful waves of energy that could either knock you down or carry you to new shores depending on your skill in riding them. This understanding transforms your relationship with difficulties completely. Instead of seeing problems as evidence that your spiritual practices aren't working, you recognize them as opportunities to deepen your mastery. Instead of trying to manifest a life without challenges, you develop the ability to remain sourced while consciously creating through any circumstances. The masters discovered that chaos often carries the exact energy needed for their next evolutionary leap. The breakdown of old patterns creates space for new possibilities. The intensity of difficult situations can accelerate spiritual development far beyond what's possible during peaceful times. Chaos becomes an ally in conscious evolution rather than an obstacle to overcome. Historical records show that the greatest spiritual masters often achieved their most profound realizations during periods of extreme challenge. Buddha's enlightenment occurred while facing his deepest fears and attachments under the Bodhi tree. Jesus demonstrated ultimate spiritual mastery while experiencing crucifixion. Many Christian mystics reported their most profound union with divine consciousness during periods of persecution and suffering. The Hindu tradition preserves stories of masters who achieved liberation while being tortured, suggesting that extreme circumstances can actually catalyze spiritual breakthroughs when consciousness is properly prepared. The Tibetan Buddhist practice of Chod deliberately involves practitioners placing themselves in frightening situations to develop unshakable inner stability. Modern research into post-traumatic growth documents how many people develop enhanced psychological resilience, deeper spiritual understanding, and improved relationships after navigating major life crises. Studies show that individuals who maintain some form of spiritual practice during difficult times often emerge stronger and more conscious than those who avoid challenges. Neuroscience research reveals that the brain develops new neural pathways most rapidly during periods of stress and uncertainty, suggesting that challenging circumstances create optimal conditions for consciousness expansion when approached skillfully. The research into anti-fragility shows that some systems actually become stronger through exposure to stressors rather than weaker. Elite athletes and performers routinely train under pressure specifically to develop the ability to maintain peak performance during chaotic competition conditions. This stress inoculation allows them to access their highest abilities when circumstances are least supportive, paralleling the spiritual development that occurs through conscious engagement with life's challenges. Perhaps most significantly, many advanced manifestation practitioners report that their most powerful creations emerged during or immediately after their most difficult periods. They describe learning to harness the intense energy of crisis for breakthrough manifestations that wouldn't have been possible during stable times. To develop mastery in maintaining center during chaos, practice chaos consciousness, learning to find stability within instability, rather than seeking external conditions that support your peace. When turbulent situations arise, practice eye of the storm awareness. Like a hurricane center that remains calm while powerful forces swirl around it, locate the part of your consciousness that remains stable regardless of external circumstances. This isn't detachment from experience, but finding the deeper identity that includes all experience without being overwhelmed by any of it. Develop chaos surfing skills by looking for the creative potential within difficult situations, rather than only focusing on their problems. Ask, what new possibility is trying to emerge through this chaos? Or, how might this turbulence be providing exactly the energy I need for my next breakthrough? This doesn't mean pretending problems don't exist, but recognizing that breakdown often precedes breakthrough. Practice dynamic centeredness during daily challenges. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions to feel centered, learn to access your source nature while dealing with traffic, difficult people, financial stress, or health issues. Use ordinary chaos as a training ground for extraordinary circumstances. Cultivate chaos gratitude by appreciating turbulent periods as accelerated evolution opportunities. Notice how challenges often carry the exact lessons or growth experiences you need most, even when they don't feel pleasant. This perspective transforms obstacles into allies in your conscious development. Most importantly, develop unconditional center, the ability to remain connected to your source nature regardless of external circumstances. Practice returning to the center, not because conditions support it, but because the center is who you are beneath all changing conditions. Mastering the art of chaos reveals the ultimate spiritual paradox. The more deeply you root in your unchanging nature, the more fluidly you can dance with constant change. This understanding bridges ancient wisdom and modern living, showing how timeless spiritual principles apply to contemporary challenges. As we conclude our exploration of these 11 forgotten laws, the question becomes, how will you integrate this knowledge into daily life to become the conscious energy master you were always meant to be? Integration and next steps. If you've recognized the truth in even half of these 11 laws, you now possess knowledge that was once reserved for the highest initiates of the mystery schools. You understand that reality responds to vibration rather than intention. You know that you project rather than attract. You've learned that your body speaks what your mind denies, and that coherent emotion is the universe's native language. You've discovered how the observer changes the observed, how guardian patterns control your access to different realities, and how existence serves as a perfect mirror for consciousness. You've explored how manifestation without neediness multiplies power, how doubt is actually faith in reverse, and how you are the source rather than someone seeking the source. Finally, you've learned to maintain center even in chaos, transforming turbulence into creative energy rather than allowing it to destabilize your connection to your true power. But knowledge without application remains merely intellectual entertainment. These laws become transformative only when you embody them through consistent practice and authentic integration into your daily life. Remember that you're not learning something foreign to your nature. You're remembering capacities you've always possessed but were taught to forget. Every human being is born with these abilities active, but social conditioning gradually convinces us that we're powerless victims of circumstances rather than conscious creators of experience. The ancient masters knew that reactivating these dormant abilities requires both understanding and practice. Understanding provides the map, but practice creates the actual pathways in your consciousness that allow these principles to operate through you automatically rather than requiring constant effort. Most importantly, recognize that mastering these laws serves a purpose beyond personal gain. As you develop conscious creative ability, you become a force for positive change in a world that desperately needs people who can create solutions from higher consciousness rather than react to problems from limited thinking. Here's your systematic approach to integrating these 11 laws into lived mastery. Daily foundation practices. Do these every day. Begin each morning with vibrational alignment. 5 minutes of checking what frequency you're broadcasting before engaging with external circumstances. Feel into your body, notice your emotional state, and consciously choose to embody the vibration you want to project into your day. Practice coherent emotion for at least 10 minutes daily. Choose one authentic positive emotion, gratitude, appreciation, love, or peace, and sustain it while breathing slowly. Let this become your baseline frequency rather than just a temporary practice. End each day with a mirror review, examining your experiences as reflections of your internal state rather than random events happening to you. Ask, what patterns did I project today? What is my reality trying to show me about my consciousness? Weekly development practices. Implement gradually. Schedule weekly. Guardian pattern work sessions where you examine your unconscious protective mechanisms and their impact on your manifestation abilities. Notice where you sabotage yourself and dialogue with these patterns compassionately. Practice manifestation without neediness by working with desires that feel emotionally neutral rather than starting with your most charged wants. Build your ability to create from fullness before attempting to manifest from areas where you feel desperate. Engage in regular chaos consciousness training by consciously maintaining center during minor daily turbulences, traffic jams, difficult conversations, unexpected changes. Use these as preparation for larger challenges. Monthly integration cycles, deep mastery work. Conduct monthly reviews of your progress with each law. Which ones feel natural and integrated? Which still require conscious effort? Where are you seeing measurable changes in your external reality that reflect internal shifts? Practice advanced observer shifting by consciously exploring how different states of consciousness reveal different possibilities within identical circumstances. Notice how your mood, beliefs, and expectations literally change what you can perceive and experience. Work with source recognition practices that help you stabilize the understanding that you are the creative force rather than someone trying to access it. This is the foundation that makes all other practices effortless. Ongoing mastery development. Connect with others who are working with these principles. Conscious creation develops faster in a community than in isolation. Share your experiences, challenges, and breakthroughs with people who understand this path. Study the original mystery school texts that preserved these teachings, the Hermetic corpus, the Egyptian mystery traditions, advanced yogic texts, and mystical Christianity writings. Your awakening consciousness will recognize truths in these materials that weren't accessible before your direct experience began. Most importantly, begin sharing these principles with others who are ready. Teaching accelerates your own mastery while serving the awakening of human consciousness that's happening globally. Your journey with these 11 laws has only begun. As you integrate these foundational principles, you'll discover that they open doorways to even more advanced capacities: direct energy transmission, conscious influence on others' healing processes, group manifestation work, and collaboration with non-physical intelligence that guides human evolution. The ancient masters who preserved these teachings knew that humanity would eventually be ready to reclaim its birthright as conscious creators. That time is now. The question isn't whether these abilities are real or whether you possess them. Your exploration of these laws has already proven both. The only question is how fully you'll develop and apply them in service to your own evolution and the awakening of human consciousness itself. Conclusion. Take a moment to appreciate the courage you've demonstrated by opening your mind to possibilities that mainstream thinking considers impossible. You've allowed yourself to consider that reality might be far more responsive to consciousness than you were taught. You've entertained the possibility that you might possess creative abilities beyond what society tells you is realistic. You've been willing to explore your true nature as something far more powerful than a helpless victim of circumstances. This willingness to question limitations and explore expanded possibilities is the same courage that drove the ancient masters to discover these principles originally. You are walking in the footsteps of the greatest consciousness explorers in human history, people who refuse to accept appearances as the final word about what's possible. Every time you practice vibrational alignment, you honor the masters who preserved this knowledge through millennia of persecution and secrecy. Every time you work with coherent emotion, you continue the tradition of those who understood that consciousness and energy are the fundamental building blocks of reality. Every time you maintain center in chaos, you demonstrate the mastery that these teachings were designed to cultivate. You are not just learning ancient techniques, you are becoming an ancient master in modern form. The same consciousness that achieved miracles through the pharaohs of Egypt, the mystics of Tibet, and the saints of all traditions is the consciousness that looks through your eyes and seeks expression through your life. The most important truth I can leave with you is this: these 11 laws are not external principles you need to follow. They are descriptions of how your consciousness naturally operates when it's not constrained by limiting beliefs about what's possible. You are not learning to become something you're not. You are remembering what you've always been. Every law we've explored points to the same fundamental reality. You are consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing apparent limitation through identification with a small story about who you are. The moment you remember your true nature as the creative principle of existence, these laws become as natural as breathing. The world needs people who remember this truth and live from it consistently. Humanity is at a crossroads where our survival depends on evolving beyond the limited thinking that has created our current crises. The solutions we need will not come from the same level of consciousness that created our problems. They require the expanded awareness that these ancient teachings cultivate. Your personal mastery of these laws is not separate from humanity's evolution. It's an essential contribution to it. Every person who remembers their true creative power makes it easier for others to remember theirs. Every individual who learns to manifest from consciousness rather than limitation adds to the morphic field of human possibility. The ancient masters preserved these teachings not for personal power, but for species transformation. They knew that eventually, humanity would face challenges that could only be solved by people who understood their true relationship to the creative forces of existence. As you continue developing mastery with these 11 laws, you can expect your relationship with reality to transform in ways that will amaze even you. Synchronicities will become so common that you'll recognize them as natural feedback from a universe that's actively collaborating with your consciousness. Manifestation will evolve from something you do occasionally to something that happens continuously as the natural expression of your aligned being. You'll discover that the masters who develop these teachings continue to guide people who sincerely commit to this path. As your practice deepens, you'll begin receiving direct guidance through meditation, dreams, and sudden insights that arrive precisely when you need them most. Most importantly, you'll find that mastering these laws serves purposes far beyond personal manifestation. You'll discover that your true mission involves helping others remember their own creative power, contributing to solutions for collective challenges, and participating in the conscious evolution of human awareness itself. The universe is waiting for you to claim your birthright as a conscious creator. Everything you need to succeed is already within you, waiting to be awakened through practice and dedication. Here is my challenge to you. Stop treating these laws as interesting concepts and start living them as your operating system. Choose one law that resonated most strongly and commit to practicing it daily for the next 30 days. Notice how this single shift begins transforming your entire relationship with reality. Connect with others who are exploring these principles. Find or create study groups where you can practice together and support each other's development. The ancient mysteries were always taught in community because consciousness evolution accelerates through shared exploration. Most importantly, begin sharing these principles with others who seem ready for them. You don't need to become a teacher or guru. Simply live these truths so authentically that others begin asking what you're doing differently. Your embodied mastery will inspire questions that give you natural opportunities to plant seeds of remembrance. The ancient masters spent their lives preserving this knowledge for people exactly like you, souls who would incarnate at this crucial time in human history with both the capacity to understand these principles and the mission to help implement them on a global scale. Your consciousness awakening to its true creative power is not a personal achievement to be celebrated privately. It's a cosmic assignment that requires your active participation in humanity's next evolutionary leap. Will you accept this assignment? Will you claim your birthright as a conscious energy master? Will you become one of the awakened ones who help guide our species through its current transformation? The ancient wisdom has been waiting lifetimes for this moment. Your choice, your awakening. The 11 forgotten laws are no longer forgotten. The question is, what will you create with them? The keys to reality itself are now in your hands. Use them wisely. Use them powerfully. Use them in service to the highest good of all. Your time as an unconscious victim of circumstances is over. Your life as a conscious master of living energy begins now.